After a seismic road trip that saw them get wins over the Colorado Summit and the Salt Lake Shred, the New York Empire returned home to finish out the regular season in 2023 against the team that last beat them at home back in 2018, the Montreal Royale. 5 years later, these teams find themselves in entirely different spots with entirely different rosters. But you know what? I have played Mousetrap with that Rube Goldberg-esque big trap in the middle of the board, and I know there is such a thing as trap games, and I do say this sitting from this ivory tower where the Empire are 11-0, that Montreal are going to have to play basically perfect if they're going to snap their 15-game winless streak dating back to last season. But speaking of getting trapped, the most difficult thing that the Montreal Royale will have to do in New Rochelle is find a way to score against those Empire D-lines. And it's not just one D-line, it's 2 D-lines. If you haven't been paying attention, the Empire haven't allowed 20-plus goals the entire season. And a 13.82 goals against average, that would crush the record of 15 goals allowed per game. Now that half game against Boston does skew the numbers just a bit, but even if they had, say, 16 in that game, which was more than the pace of glory were on in that competition, they still will capture the all-time record. The Royale will also need to make a few stars in the game because they're going to be without some of their regulars, including Malik Ogier-Samar, who is second on the team in total scores despite playing only 7 of 10 games this season, and that's a big loss for them. Brandon Adibe, who signed to boost the D-line, has only played in 3 games this season. Nabil Saouche and Jacques Brissett have both just played 2 games, and they were going to be expected regular starters on the Montreal O-line. Even William St. Pierre, who busted onto the scene for 15 goals in 4 games this season, he's only played, as I said, 4 games, though he will be available against New York. Philippe Labourdais will be available and has been one of those, we'll say, making new stars in Montreal examples this season. In his rookie season, it's been pretty underrated. He has 22 goals in 8 games, and Christophe Tremblay-Joncas has come back healthy from that awful injury last season with 13 goals, 7 assists, and 13 blocks this year. Tremblay-Joncas is also one of only 3 Royale players to play in all 10 games so far this season, along with Antoine Rousseau and a man from upstate New York that always deserves his flowers in Kevin Quinlan. The former Rochester Dragon deserves all the applause for leading the team in total scores, 13 goals and 31 assists, and has been there for each and every game this season. There are questions on whether or not this might be his last year, but whether or not he hangs up his cleats now or in the future, Kevin Quinlan has been one of the best that the AUDL has had to offer since its inception. Which brings us back to New York. The Empire's depth has been a point of discussion all season long, and this one against Montreal with some rotation is no exception. Mike and Ryan Drost, who both sit at 198 blocks in their careers, won't be able to make any history because they won't be available against Montreal. We'll have to wait for the playoffs against either DC or Boston. The Empire will also be without Oliver Chartok, Simon Versmeyer-Bailey, and Breton Tan from their usual 20. But it's not like they're flying blind. The players who will be stepping in have been around before. Zachary Burpee, who played his 1 game this season against Montreal, and Angelo Casey, who is making his season debut, having last played for the Empire in 2021, plus Charles Weinberg and Matt Labar return to the lineup as well. Even with Weinberg back, the O-line is still missing 1 person from their regular 7, 8, 9-man rotation, so whoever that 7th man is on O does seem to be the only big question coming in for New York. Will Matt Cat Stevens go back to his rightful place in the Empire O-line? Will Ben Gant and John Randolph just fill in some points and shift around bodies between the 2 D-lines? Or maybe Zach Burpee just slots in as he did play O-line with Boston last season. Ethan Thornton and Josue Aloro are former O-line handlers, and they could just slot in for Saul as his replacement. Whatever the answer, it sounds like there is no wrong answer for the New York Empire. Again, that game is 7 p.m. on Saturday night at Joseph F. Facina Field, so as we always say, and I've been saying all season long, we'll see you there.